G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute today. I'm joined by Mr. Algared. How you doing, buddy? Swelteringly hot,
Feeling
I've heard. In
it
your neck of
was
the woods.
swelteringly hot yesterday. I was melting in my flat. It did reach for the Americans 100 degrees. For Australians, that was like 40. Actually, it's 39.9 at 5:30 in the afternoon. So it was.
That's when we go
Help
out on the
me!
road here.
I'm melting.
We go out on the road here in summer and crack a few eggs. Just cook
Yeah,
them
that's
right on
right.
the road. Shuck up the barbie. We call it road barbie.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Today,
exist, but
though.
I'm sure someone will make a wiki about it.
Today,
Yeah. So today
chalk and
we're doing a RSI Phoenix versus an Origin 600 comparison. This was a requested show by someone in our show suggestions on our Discord. And it was a little difficult. These are two ships that are kind of both very problematic. So it's like who's the worst problem child of these two? And we kind of
and they've also got the problem in that we know the 600 is getting a rework on the interior. We know there are other aspects we don't know what certain components are. So, and I know I've stolen your thunder, but we're really looking at.
I'm used to it, Algared, at this point after all these shows. Oh, good.
But we're looking at trying to look at gameplay loops. So what was got, and also the aesthetics, which ship kind of deals. And even there, we've still got the problem with the 600 because we know it's getting a revamp of the interior. So problematic as a show and problematic for the ships. So yeah.
So using stats and stuff, it can a bit hard. So I guess at this point we're kind of really going for aesthetics and kind of gameplay things that we can like tangibly see that are going to have an effect. So let's kind of start off with a real brief overview. We'll start with the Phoenix. What are your pros and cons for this ship, Algared?
My pros for the ship is it is the luxury version of the RSI. It does have quality of life components in terms of the rooms, the 3 luxury rooms. They may be a bit small, but they are quite nice. There's certainly nice seating. The windows, again, set it off nicely. It's got a nice bar, and yeah.
Oh,
It's also not Origin.
Not a pro is what I wrote. Not a pro when you said luxury. I just went not a pro. Anyway, keep going.
It's got good weapons for a pilot. It's probably the downside is it's got too much of what a pilot can do at the moment. So it needs to have those roles split up a little bit. It's supposed to be the best armored of the Constellation line. It's got missiles. It's got fighter. It's got place for a rover. Yeah, they're probably the big pluses I see.
And the negatives then? Your negatives for it?
The negatives?
The short list.
It's underpowered.
Top five.
It's underpowered. It's undergunned. It doesn't have enough space. That's about it. Oh, and it's missing its mythical 3rd turret.
For me, this ship of the luxury ships actually does do a lot. It's probably functionally, as in the list, is quite long. It can also do a lot of stuff. It's more because it's more economy than it is like an Origin ship. It's just got a little bit more to it. So I do like that it's got that. I can't really say much else because everyone that knows me knows that I'm not a fan of luxury ships. I do think when I first looked at it, one of the big things for me was the defense turret, the point defense turret. Whether that remains at the end of the day is to kind of TBA because they've talked about that backwards and forwards. So we'll kind of leave that up in the air for the moment.
They keep saying it's coming. They do keep saying it's coming.
I'll believe when I see it. Let's put it that way.
I haven't seen it, and so like you, I'll believe it when I see it. Unfortunately,
I do think a plus for this ship in its favor above the 600 is definitely the additional snubcraft. That is very unique, and it's pretty much unique to this ship alone. I know other ships can have ships dock, but the way this docks is different again. There were a lot of things that they did for this ship that I actually wish that were kind of almost rolled back into the other Andromedas, especially the cargo rover area. I thought that was really nice. That's kind of where my list plucking at straws, so to speak, ends, because I think this ship had, and I'll call it feature creep, but what it was a lot of promises over time that were promised that just they'd promised so much that they just couldn't deliver. And this ship being from older metrics, having so much promised, they even increased the kind of size of the ship, and that was still not enough to fit in everything they needed to fit in. To me, I actually think this ship almost needed to be luxury or a constellation, so to speak. It couldn't really be both. Like, to me, I almost think it needs to lose the rover bay to get that luxury back, and that would have been, I don't know how you do it, but it just feels too squished in, and like little things like the way you enter the ship and stuff like that. And you and I have talked about this to the cows come home. Things like
the fact that it's got a bathtub,
side entries with ramps, a whole bunch of things that we've suggested. Things like that. So there are fixes for it. Hell, we've done a whole thing on how can you fix this. But for me, it is an older ship and it suffers from that. And I think if we now adversely go to the 600, its problem is almost the inverse, where it's got too much space.
Yeah.
And I'll go first on this one then. So for me, if you actually look at the schematics of the 600i from above, this ship is pretty much only half full. They have a lot of space that they could utilize, and I just find it a little weird that they didn't utilize that, especially when they have so much open areas already. I don't think they utilize the space appropriately. One of the big things for me that is just blaringly obvious is that tube in the center of the stairs. Like, it's got 5 little plants. Like, why wasn't that an aquarium or like a really big alien plant or something like that? I would have liked to have seen more. And one of the things we've talked about in some of it is customization. That I think that should be a real thing for the luxury ships, for you to be able to pick your interior and play around and almost customize it like you can customize your hangar. I think that could be a really cool, unique feature of those ships. Positive wise, I don't really have too many to add to it, in a lot of way, because it does have better guns than the Phoenix. But it's bigger, so it's a bigger target. So like where it gains in some areas, it draws backs in others. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the 600i? Because I kind of don't have a lot to say that's going to come off well.
Yeah. Well, anyone who knows the channel knows how much I love the interior of a 600i. I detest it. So I don't for a luxury ship, it really doesn't feel like it delivers. Like, you go into the touring model of a 600i and you go through the bedrooms, and they're even there's more bedrooms. Awesome. But they're pokier than the bedrooms in the 600 in the Phoenix. All the Phoenix ones all have a nice little fish tank, and they look nice, whereas the 600i ones look almost Drake in comparison. So for me, it just doesn't. They don't do it. And then you look down at the crew quarters, and for a ship that size to go by an open crew deck area just seems ludicrous.
It's kind of funny looking at the reflection of what you were just talking about, as in the crew quarters. Like, so you've got one ship where the VIP has to walk through the crew quarters to get into their quarters. Then you've got another one where, so they're segmented, so they keep VIPs and the crew separate. Then you've got one where it's all mishmashed together, and that doesn't work either. So they've got one extreme and the other, and neither of them work. Yeah. So it's kind of bizarre.
I've often felt that the 600 really is a poor man's 890. It's trying to go for that open space of the 890 and all the things that the 890's got. But to do it, you'd need it to be as big as an 890. It can't do it. And so you've got this wasted space, like you were saying, this massive wasted space. I'd love to see that. I like the idea of that tube and the stairwell going down, but I want that tube to be full. I don't want it to be a massive empty tube with little plants down the bottom. If I'm using plants, I want it to be a blistering colour explosion. And if it's an aquarium, I want fish going up and down the whole length. But it's empty, and so it just adds to that emptiness. And I hope when CIG do get around to reworking the interior of a 600, they do things like fix that. But at the moment, the interior just feels empty.
I think specifically on that point, they did use an excessive amount of lights in that ship.
Yep.
They did actually mention that when they were doing redoing a lighting pass on it, and that probably is really upset the optimization of that ship. So maybe when they cut the lights back, they can probably put more polygons or more models back into it. I did want to say, getting back to the bedroom, because I do find that's one of the problem areas. This whole ship kind of feels like they made a really big space and then didn't have things to fill it, and I think it almost comes back to that lighting issue where they just don't have enough polygons to fill the space, so that the ship does feel kind of not empty, but emptier than most other ships, especially compared to the Phoenix. And you and I have made fixes to the cows come home on that ship. Definitely what we said about the walls, plus moving the bathroom in and using other rooms to different advantages and stuff like that.
But and with the 600, at least the bedrooms each have a little bathroom, so you do have that in the crew in the passenger area, and their main guest suite is a guest suite. It does rival a suite in the 890, but it feels out of place. And I know there'll be people who say they love that, but I'll be honest, I hate the massive glass window in that room. Maybe if the office was in that section and the bedroom was at the back, maybe I could cope with it more. But having this window you can see through if I'm lying on the bed, that's just not, that to me is just not on it. It's just
Yeah, I know we kind of said we probably wouldn't talk about this, but like in a combat situation between these two ships, if it was an actual fight, who would you expect to win? Just as it plays right now, who would you expect to win if it was a Phoenix versus 600i? Are you assuming the 600i just because of dollar value, or do you think it would be fairly toe to toe?
I would normally expect, based on what CIG originally used to say, it's got the increased cost because it's got the extra features, that you'd see the 600i win out over a Phoenix. But I'd like to think the Phoenix, because it's supposedly a smaller ship and it should be more maneuverable than the larger ship, would actually come out on top, especially since it's got the missiles and it's got the 4 size 4s or 2 size 5s and 2 size 4s, depending on how you do equip those guns on it.
And don't discount the Archimedes.
Yeah,
I think that would bring quite an annoyance to bear on the 600i, because if it can get
or even if you
actually even if you turrets,
if
you could actually get in there and make a weak point on one side. So if he could actually target a turret and take that turret out, that 600i could be in real trouble.
And we're certainly seeing that type of approach being used to take out the Idris. So I could see, I'd expect, based on manoeuvring of a smaller ship versus a larger ship, the Connie would be able to hopefully have a better chance of staying out of its arc. Its weapons, I think, are comparable. So it'd just come down to which one I think had the better crew.
And I think that,
and the P-52 could be an option, because those ballistic weapons on the P-52 could also cause significant damage. So, sorry.
That's all right. You know how they've got the Aquila front end? If they didn't give the Aquila to the Phoenix, I actually would like to see a customized front end just for this ship. I think it deserves it. I think it could get, like they say, it costs more, so therefore they get a better view or something like that, and have a customized front end.
I wouldn't even mind seeing them do the customization where you could choose which cockpit you have. Whether you have a rounded one, whether you have a standard one, whether you have a different one. Whether you have, what type of wood paneling do you have? Do you have a current wood paneling? Do you have a dark wood paneling?
Yeah.
Do you have a pine wood paneling?
As I said earlier, luxury, being able to pick what's the internals of your ship should be a part of luxury.
I'm just having a quick read of a note that we've been sent. So hang on.
Yep.
I reckon.
All right. I'm not gonna wait.
So it's Basically, the comment was, if you want the luxury of the light of rolls, don't buy a Lincoln. So yeah, I'd agree with that, and I suppose it's if you want luxury, don't buy an RSI imitation as a comment. I actually think that's a harsh comment. I actually think the luxury in the Phoenix actually is pretty damn good. The problem it faces is it's a smaller ship. It certainly trumps a 300i and possibly even a 400i.
They need to make it like a stretch limo Algared. They just it's twice as long as normal or something. Yeah.
And I think, I suppose in comparison, that's what a 600i would be, the stretch limo of a Connie.
So let's cut to the chase then, Algared. If you had to pick between one of these two, who is the winner for you between the 600i and the?
Well, currently the Phoenix. I've always had a soft spot for the Connies anyway. As much as I think they've been hard done by and they're old ships and they're screwed by that, it still has that soft spot. And I think that snub fighter does give it the edge in game loops. But in terms of gameplay loops, both ships can do the same thing. It's just that extra survivability of the P-52 or 72.
Without taking into effect money, I'd probably, I think I kind of agree with you because it can just do more for me. If I was to purchase one though, I probably would still take the 600i. Just because I think this one has a lot wrong with it it just doesn't, like, it's the same for all the Andromedas, right? They all have issues. At least we know that the 600i is getting some rework,
an interior work.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that'll improve enough that if I was a betting man, I'd be betting on that 600i getting a specs bumped. So.
I did have a look at the Phoenix just before we went in game and pulled it out and tried to count the components. And it's a dog's breakfast. So even the Phoenix is going to need to be changed to fit those. It's apparently got 2 shields that are near the bathtub, but then down the front of the ship, it's got 2 areas that are listed as shields, and it's also got 2 areas that are listed for avionics. So there's 3 areas. So it's a bit of a dog's breakfast in terms of avionics. So it's got 3 avionics and 2 shield areas listed as in that front cockpit section, and then you've got 2 shields in the back. So what they're doing and where components will go, we still don't know overall.
All right, so let us know in the comments below which one would you choose, the 600i or the Phoenix, and your reasons for why. It is it's kind of I wouldn't take either. Let's be honest, I wouldn't take either.
No, because you hate luxury.
I hate luxury. I think it's a waste of freaking space. But this episode's been, I think the guy requested it like literally 6 months ago. It's been sitting there on the list for ages, and we haven't talked about these ships in a while, so I thought I'd do that one today. But yeah, it is interesting. Which one do you prefer out of the 2 worst ships in the game? Like that's what this title read for me.
Yeah, like I think that I'd like to see that almost luxury interior. That top section where you've got the crew quarters or the passenger quarters be translated across to the Aquila, along with the wider bay for the landing craft.
It's going to be translated. It's going to be translated all over the verse as people destroy them and leave them wide open for people to loot.
But you know what I mean,
worry.
But and add quality of life features to the Explorer.
Yeah.
For me, that's a logical thing, and give an option to get rid of a bathtub and put a pool table in, or do things like that.
Eventually, when they come back around to redoing the Phoenix, I have no doubt the Phoenix is going to increase in size to accommodate more of the Phoenix. But I think for Squadron 42 reasons, it definitely.
And it'll be interesting to see. I think the biggest one will be that point defense turret. So if that comes on, that even if it stays roughly the same size, that gives it that leg up even more against a 600.
Yeah, and it might even definitely even if you're just letting that come to bear on the 600i, it might defeat it on its own. We just don't know how strong that's going to end up being. It literally could just be some kind of automated turret at the end of it. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, well, even if it takes out the missiles, even if it just takes out the missiles that the 600 fires at it, that's getting rid of one arm of a fence, whereas you've still got that ability to toss them at the 600 and not be able to be countered as by a dedicated turret. So,
all right, we'll leave it there. Again, as I said, let us know in the comments your thoughts, 600i or Phoenix. I do know that a lot of people have love-hate relationships with this ship. This gentleman being one of them. And I look forward to reading your comments below. If you like this content, like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. If you feel like going that extra mile on Patreon, join us on the Discord. I'm sure there'll be a discussion about this tomorrow when this comes out. But yeah, he's been Algared, I've been Execute, and we'll catch you.
and we're out of here. Take care.